Shalom, everyone. Today we want to take a look at He who was, He who is, and He who is to come. Beginning at Psalm 119, 160, in the ISR, we read, "The sum of your word is truth, and all your righteous right rulings are forever." In the KJV, we read it as, "Thy word is true from the beginning, and every one of thy righteous judgments endureth forever." As we can see in the interlinear Hebrew Old Testament, we have the beginning, thy word, true, forever, and every one judgments of thy righteous. Taking a look at our word beginning, we see that it is Strong's H7218, rosh, or resh, from an unused root, apparently meaning to shake, the head, as most easily shaken, whether literally or figuratively, in many applications of place, time, rank, etc. Looking in the ancient Hebrew lexicon, we find it at 1458 DN. At the N root, we see its head, the top of the body, a person in authority or role of a leader, the top, beginning, or first of something. At the family D root, we see the concrete as head. And we would look at the 1458 two-letter root, we see the action is inherit, the concrete is head. The pictograph resh is a picture of the head. The head of the tribe, chief, or family, father, is passed from generation to generation. The head grants permission for the betrothal of his daughters and determines the inheritor of the tribe or family, the head of a person, place, thing, or time. So as we see, this resh is more than what we get just from our English word beginning. It is the top of the body, the person in authority, the role of a leader. So where do we find this first resh, this first head in the scriptures? In the beginning. In the beginning, Elohim created the heaven and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of Elohim moved upon the face of the waters, and Elohim said, "Let there be light," and there was light. Here we have our very first word in the scriptures, which is beginning. As we can see down here in the ancient Hebrew, the very first letter of the very first word is a resh. It is the head. It is the top of the body. It is the one in authority. Strong's number H7225, reshith, from the same as H7218, the first in place, time, order, or rank, specifically a first fruit. At the N root, we see the beginning, the head of a space, such as the head of a river, or time, such as an event. At the D, the concrete is the head, and again we see the same thing at the two-letter family root because this comes from the same root line. The action is to inherit the concrete as the head of the tribe, the chief, or family father, is passed from generation to generation. Again, the head grants permission for the betrothal of his daughters and determines the inheritor of the tribe or family, the head of a person, place, thing, or time. So as we can see right here in the very beginning, we have the head. What a beautiful picture right from the beginning. So what was this head doing from the very beginning? In the beginning, Elohim created the Shemaims and the earth. We can see creating is a primitive root, Strong's H1254. To create, to cut down, select, feed as a formative process. In the ancient Hebrew lexicon, we see that it is a filling, to fill, the fattening or filling up of something, the filling up of the earth in Genesis 1 with sun, moon, planets, animals, etc., and the filling of man with life and the image of Elohim. Since he is the only existence that creates everything which exists, he must have been filling up everything with himself. So let's look at some verses to clarify that. John 1, verses 1 through 3. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with Elohim, and the Word was Elohim. He was in the beginning with Elohim. All came to be through him, and without him not even one came to be that came to be. As we saw in verse 3 of Genesis, Elohim said something, and what he said was this word that was him. Hebrews 11:3. By belief we understand that the ages were prepared by the word of Elohim, so that what is seen was not made out of what is visible. Psalm 33:6. By the word of Yahweh the heavens were made, and all their host by the Spirit of his mouth. Let's turn to Colossians chapter 1 and read verses 9 through 20. And in this first part is what we have prayer for everyone, that they would come to this knowledge and be empowered with this and be able to give thanks and be able to see what Yeshua Messiah, our Master, our Elohim, has done for us. Verse 9. That is why we, from the day we heard, have not ceased praying for you and asking that you be filled with the knowledge of his desire in all wisdom and spiritual understanding, to walk worthily of the Master, of the Head who we saw in the beginning, pleasing all, bearing fruit in every good work, and increasing in the knowledge of Elohim, who has been since from the beginning, being empowered with all power according to the might of his esteem, for all endurance and patience with joy, giving thanks to the Father, who allows for the betrothal of his daughters, and determines the inheritor of the tribe, who has made us fit to share in the inheritance of the set-apart ones in the light, who has delivered us from the authority of darkness and transferred us into the reign of the Son of his love, in whom we have redemption through his blood, the forgiveness of sins, who is the likeness of the invisible Elohim, the firstborn of all creation, because in him were created all that are in the heavens and on the earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or rulerships or principalities or authorities, all have been created through him and for him. And he is before all, top, head, authority, leader, and from the very beginning, the one who exists, the one who created everything that exists, and in him all hold together. Who is he? And he is the head of the body, the assembly, who is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, that he might become the one who is first in all. Actually, that might become goes back to existence, so it should read in the Hebrew, he exists, the one who is first in all, because in him all the completeness was well pleased to dwell, and through him to completely restore us to favor, all unto himself, whether on earth or in the heavens, having made peace through the blood of his stake, to restore us all unto himself. We are being restored unto one. So this that he was filling up the heavens and the earth with, was it truth from the head, Resh, from the beginning? Thy word is true from the beginning, and every one of thy righteous judgments endureth forever. As we have seen, this should be thy word, truth, beginning, from the head, from the top, from the one in authority, from the beginning. So this truth is Strong's H571. It's emeth, contracted from H539, stability, figuratively, certainty, truth, or trustworthiness. In the ancient Hebrew lexicon, it is 1290 CN2. Truth, what is firm? At the C family root, we see the action is firm, the concrete is pillar, something that grabs hold or supports something else, the passing of strength or skill to the next generation. A large group of the same kind are stronger than one. At the 1290 two-letter root, we see the action is firm, the concrete is kind, and the abstract is sure. The pictograph mem is a picture of water or other liquid, such as blood. The noon is a picture of a seed representing continuance. Combined, these mean blood continues. Each species, kind, continues by passing its blood to the following generation, which comes from the parent. Also, the idea of strength through the blood. This word and this root line in itself are simply loaded with truth. As you can see, the word truth begins with the L and it ends with the Ta. And in between, we have the blood continuing, or the likeness continuing. You can be for sure, as it says in the abstract, and for certain, that like kind is going to continue after like kind. That is absolutely firm. And that the truth is going to be for sure and for certain. And it has been since the beginning. I don't think there's any question that we might have that there would have been anything but truth from the beginning. Because in our leader, in our head, in the one who was from the beginning, the top of the body, there is no falsehood. So as we saw, the truth that was from the beginning, that came from the head, the top, the authority, the leader, began with the L and ended with the Ta. In the modern Hebrew, you'll see it's Aleph and Tav. So, in the beginning, this head, this authority, created, he filled up everything with himself, Elohim, El Ta. We know that he refers to himself as the El Ta in the book of Revelation. Let's see, Strong's H853, apparently contracted from H226, in the demonstrative sense of entity, properly self. He's filling everything up with himself. All that is true from the L to the Ta. On the second part of the definition in the Strong's, we see, but generally used to point out more definitely the direct object of a verb or preposition, even or namely. However, this is not always the case. There are places in the scripture where we see an object without an El Ta. There are places in the scriptures where we see the El Ta pointing to something other than an object. In the ancient Hebrew lexicon, at the 1022 AN root, we see the El Ta. Number 1 is a plow point. The plow point is used to cut a deep furrow in the ground for planting seeds. a common grammatical word that precedes the direct object of a verb. 2 is a sign mark, or wonder as a sign. Number 3, at, something that moves near something to be with it, also used as a grammatical tool to mark the direct object of a verb, which we've discussed. It just doesn't happen all the time. At the A root, we see that the concrete is a plow, the plowing of a field by driving the oxen toward a distant mark. At the 1022 parent root, the action is plow, the concrete is mark. The pictograph L is a picture of the ox. The taw is a picture of 2 cross sticks, used to make a sign or a mark. Combined, these pictures represent an ox moving toward a mark. When plowing a field with oxen, the plowman drives the oxen toward a distant mark in order to keep the furrow straight. A traveler arrives at his destination by following a mark. The traveling toward a mark, destination, or person. The arrival of one to the mark. A you is an individual who has arrived to a me. The coming toward a mark. A standard or flag with the family mark hangs as a sign. An agreement or covenant by 2 where a sign or mark of the agreement is made as a reminder to both parties. Again, knowing that Yahweh says of himself, I am the El and the Taw, the first and the last, the beginning and the end, he who was, he who is, and he who is to come, we also can see that if you start with the El, you have to go through to get to the Taw. So this is the El to the Taw. He is filling himself up with everything from the El to the Taw. He is filling everything up with himself because all things were created by him and through him and for him. But were these things in order? Knowing that he said something, which was a word, in Genesis 1 verse 3, let's go back and consider our starting verse, Psalm 119, 160. Thy word, the word, truth, beginning, from the head, from the top, from the one in authority, from the very beginning, and every one of thy righteous judgments endureth forever. So here we see the word that he would have spoken. Strong's H 1697, Debar from 1696, a word, by implication a matter, as spoken of thing, adverbially, a cause. We see it in the ancient Hebrew lexicon at 2093N. Debar is a word, an arrangement of words. Number 2 is a thing as something that is arranged. In Hebrew thought, words contain substance just as physical objects do. Everything exists because existence created it. John 1 verses 1 through 3. In the beginning, at the very beginning, was the Word, and the Word was in order. It was with Elohim, and the Word that was in order was Elohim. He was in the beginning with Elohim. All came to be through him, and without him, not even one that came to be came to be. He is not, was not, never will be the author of chaos, but the author of order. So in considering the head, the top, the leader, the authority, the one who was from the beginning, and the El Taw, let's go read through Zechariah 6 verses 9 through 15, and then come and take a little deeper look in the Hebrew. Zechariah 6:9. And the word of Yahweh came to me, saying, Receive from the exiles, from Heldai, Tobiah, and Yediah, who have come from Babel. Then you shall go the same day, and enter the house of Josiah, son of Zephaniah. And you shall take the silver and gold, make a crown, and set it on the head of Yehoshua, the son of Jehozadak, the high priest, and shall speak to him, saying, Thus said Yahweh of hosts, saying, See the man whose name is the branch? And from his place he shall branch out, and he shall build the Hekel of Yahweh. It is he who is going to build the Hekel of Yahweh. It is he who is going to bear the splendor. And he shall sit and rule on his throne, and shall be a priest on his throne. And the counsel of peace shall be between them both. While the crown is for a remembrance in the Hekel of Yahweh to Helem, to Tobiah, and to Yedaiah, and to Hen, son of Zephaniah. And those who are far away shall come and build the Hekel of Yahweh. And you shall know that Yahweh of hosts has sent me to you. And this shall be if you diligently obey the voice of Yahweh your Elohim. In Zechariah 6:9, we saw that this was the word of Yahweh, which was coming to Zechariah. Here we read, receive from the exiles, from Heldai, Tobiah, and Yedaiah, who have come from Babel. Then you shall go the same day and enter the house of Josiah, son of Zephaniah. In the interlinear Hebrew Old Testament, we see take, el-ta, the captivity, Cheldai. In the Strongs, in looking at the name Cheldai, or Chelda, we see it is 2469, worldliness, the name of two Israelites. It comes from 2466, Chaled, the same as 2465, Cheled. The 2465, which we'll need to trace back into the ancient Hebrew lexicon, is from an unused root, apparently meaning to of Josiah, son of Zephaniah. To glide swiftly, life as a fleeting portion of time, hence the world as transient. In the ancient Hebrew lexicon, it's 2161n. At the N, we see it's an age, a passing through a finite span of time or space. And at that 2161 root, we see age, a passing through a space or time. This name holds behind it those coming out of the world and passing into the time of the millennial reign. Moving on to the next name in this verse, we see Tobiah from H 2896 and 3050. Goodness of Yahweh, the name of 3 Israelites and 1 Samaritan. As a side note, Tobiah, just because it says it's the goodness of Yah, doesn't always mean that person holds the goodness of Yahweh. The Strong's H 2896, from which it comes, is Tob, from 2895. Good as an adjective, in the widest sense, used likewise as a noun, both in the masculine and the feminine, the singular and the plural. Good, a good or good thing, a good man or woman. The good, goods or good things. Good men or women. Also, as an adverb, well. Tracing it back to the ancient Hebrew lexicon, it is at 1186 JN. At the N, we see Tob, good, something that functions properly. At the J, we see the abstract is good. At the 2-letter root, we have the tet and the bait. The abstract is good. The pictograph tet is a picture of a basket used to contain or surround something. The bait is a picture of a tent or a house. Combined, these mean surround the house. The house is surrounded by grace, beauty, love, health, prosperity, something that is functional. So those who have come out of the world and are passing into the age or the time of the millennial reign have made themselves functional for the kingdom reign with Yahweh. Moving on, we have Yada Yah, Strong's H3048. It comes from 3045 and 3050. Yah has known. The name of two Israelites. The 3045 is Yada, a primitive root, to know, properly to ascertain by seeing, used in a great variety of senses, figuratively, literally, euphemistically, and inferentially, including observation, care, recognition, and causatively instruction, designation, punishment, etc. Going back to the ancient Hebrew lexicon, we find it at 1085 LV. The V is know. The L, the action is to see, the abstract is knowledge, to have an intimate relationship with another person, an idea, or an experience. At the 1085 two-letter root, we see the dalit and the ayin. The action is to see, the abstract is knowledge. The pictograph dal is a picture of a door. The ayin is a picture of an eye. Through the eyes, one experiences his world and learns from it. Combined, these pictures mean the door of the eye. The eye is the window into man's very being. Experience is gained through visual observation. Knowledge is achieved through these experiences. We know that it tells us in 1 John chapter 3, "See what love the Father has given us, that we should be called children of Elohim," the seed from the house of Elohim, who will inherit. For this reason, the world does not know us, because it did not know him. We are coming out of the world. We are to be coming out of the world and be being made functional for the millennial reign. So, beloved ones, now we are children of Elohim, and it has not yet been revealed what we shall be, but we know that when he is revealed, that we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is. Everyone having this expectation in him cleanses himself, as he is clean. Those who know and are known by Yahweh will be the ones that have made themselves functional, come out of the world in order to enter the reign with him. We see the rest of verse 10 says, "Then you shall go the same day and enter the house of Josiah, the son of Zephaniah." Looking at Josiah, Strong's H2977, we see it's from the same root as H803 and H3050, founded of Yah, the name of two Israelites. When we go back and we look at the 803, we see it's a feminine passive participle from an unused root, meaning to found or foundation. Tracing it back into the ancient Hebrew lexicon, we find it at 1021 ND1. A pillar, a support for a roof where the roof presses down on the pillar. At the N family root, we see the concretist pillar, a strong pressing down on something. Looking in Klein's etymological dictionary for further information, we see this word is a pillar, a foundation, a base, a hapax legomenonen in the Bible, which means it only occurs once. It's been called, as some other words are, a one-hit wonder. We see it in Jeremiah 50:15. Klein's dictionary says it's probably a loan word from Akkadian, is a pillar. Aramaic Syriac, a pillar. The Arab language, a pillar. So we see that it can allude to either a pillar or a foundation. One thing I can say about this house that is founded of Yah, that is built of Yah, that is made of Yah, who is defended by Yah, the one who holds up the house, it is all one and the same. that would be Yahweh. And that the millennial reign, which is going to take place, in which our king and high priest will be wearing a crown and sitting on a throne, will not be taking place in someone else's house. Reading in verse 11, we see that it says, "And you shall take the silver and gold, make a crown, and set it on the head of Yehoshua, the son, the seed from the house of Jehozadak, the high priest." Here we have our Rosh, our Resh, our head, the one who is the head of the body, that is the top, the leader, the one in authority, since the very beginning. In looking at the name Yehoshua, Yahshua, we see it as Strong's H3091, Yeshua, from H3068 and H3467, Yahweh saved. Strong's H3467, Yasha, a primitive root, properly to be open, wide or free, that is by implication to be safe, causatively to free or succor. Ancient Hebrew Lexicon is 1476 LV. At the V we see it's to rescue, at the L we see the action is to rescue. When one of the flock is in trouble, the shepherd rescues it. At the 1476 we see the action is watch, the concrete is shepherd, and the abstract is delight. The pictograph Shin is a picture of the teeth used for devouring or destruction. The ion is a picture of the eye. Combine these mean the destroyer watches. The shepherd carefully watches over the flock and the surrounding area, always on the lookout for danger. When a predator comes to attack, the shepherd destroys the enemy. So again, here we have Yahshua, just like we see him in the Brit Hadashah, and we see this crown being placed on the head of the body. This would be the same Yahshua spoken of in John 1:1, who was the Word, who was Elohim, who was Yahweh. In knowing that the Word is the seed according to Luke 8, and knowing that Yeshua is the seed of Elohim, who is Yahweh, here we see that Yeshua is the son, the seed from the house, the word from the house of Jehozadak. From 3068 and H6663, Yahweh's righted, Yahweh's righteousness. Strong's 6663, a Zadok, a primitive root, to be causatively make, right, in a moral or forensic sense. In the Ancient Hebrew Lexicon, 2658v, straight, to be straight. 2658, the concrete is straight and the abstract is righteous. One who is upright or righteous is one who walks a straight path. Yeshua, the son, the seed, from the house of the righteous high priest, is the word. The seed is the word that has been the truth since the beginning. He was Elohim, and he was with Elohim. He was, is, and will be the only head, Yahweh himself. Yahweh who came to rescue us, Yahweh's redemption. He will forever be the King of righteousness. He will forever be the high priest. One of the things we see in Zechariah 6:12 and 6:13 is Yehoshua, Yeshua, building the Hekel of Yahweh. This will be during the millennial reign. We see he is building it with the El to the Ta. If everything is created by, through, and for him, then this is what he will be building it with. This temple in the millennial reign is built by the Word, with the El to the Ta, in the order of the righteous king, who is the high priest. Now let's take a closer look at what the Encyclopedia Judaica says about this instance in Zechariah. Following the lead of Haggai, Zechariah also encouraged the people to rebuild the temple, Zechariah 1:16. He too addressed both leaders, albeit individually, and there is some uncertainty as to the full import of his message. Zerubbabel is mentioned explicitly in only one passage, Zechariah 4:6-10, but alluded to in two others, Zechariah 3:8 and 6:12. In the last two passages mentioned, Yeshua is addressed. He is told that Yahweh will raise up for David a righteous branch, again fulfilling a prophecy of Jeremiah 23:5 and 33:14, who shall build the temple, bear royal honor, and rule upon this throne. The high priest shall likewise rule, and a peaceful relationship shall exist between the two. The first passage, Zechariah 4:6-10, elaborates that Zerubbabel shall finish the work on the temple and topple mountains, not by might nor by power, but by my spirit, says Yahweh of hosts. These messianic hopes came to naught. Neither Zerubbabel nor Yehoshua are mentioned by name at the dedication ceremonies of the temple, Ezra 6:14, nor does Zerubbabel appear further in any official capacity. The first thing that stands out to me in this statement is these messianic hopes came to naught. The word of Yahweh does not come to naught. There must be something else that is going on in these passages. Zechariah 6:12, and shall speak to him, saying, Thus said Yahweh of hosts, saying, See the man whose name is the branch, and from his place he shall branch out, he shall sprout out, and he shall build the Hekel of Yahweh. So first of all, when we look at the word, see the man, this man is actually the word ish in Hebrew. It's the same word we see in Hosea 2:16, which reads, And it shall be in that day, declares Yahweh, that you shall call me my ish, my husband, and no longer call me my Baal. So we see here that this word man that is sometimes translated as a man is actually ish and can come across as a husband. Now we see this branch, as it said in Zechariah 3:8, where Yeshua is again being addressed. We also see this same branch as it's stated in Jeremiah 23:5 and 33:15. In 33:15 we see this branch of righteousness growing up, branching out, sprouting unto David, and he shall execute judgment and righteousness in the land. However, the Encyclopedia Judaica has already said that Zerubbabel never shows up in any official capacity again. So my question is, how could this possibly be him? How could this possibly be him in any official capacity? Yahweh's word does not return void. As a side note, I would like to add that Zerubbabel means sown in Babylon, and there will come a day during the millennial reign that those who were sown in Babylon, just like us, will come out into the rain and help Yeshua build. Reading the next verse, we see it is he, Yeshua, who is going to build, fill up with the Eltah, with who he is, with the existence that exists, the Hekel of Yahweh. It is he who is going to bear the splendor, and he shall sit and rule upon his throne, and shall be a priest on his throne, and the counsel of peace shall be between them both. So let's confirm that this is one and the same, sitting on the throne and serving as priest, aka high priest, seed from the house of the high priest. Revelation 5:11 through 13. And I looked, and I heard the voice of many messengers around the throne, and the living creatures, and the elders. And the number of them was myriads of myriads, and thousands of thousands, saying with a loud voice, Worthy is the Lamb, having been slain, to receive power, and riches, and wisdom, and strength, and respect, and esteem, and blessing. We know that this Lamb that was slaughtered, that was slain, that was pierced, was Yeshua. And every creature which is in the heaven, and on the earth, and under the earth, and such as are in the sea, and all that are in them, I heard saying, To him sitting on the throne, and the Lamb, be the blessing, and the respect, and the esteem, and the might, forever and ever. As we see, I have crossed out the word to that follows the and in this verse because it's not there in the Greek. When looking at this word and, it is kai, apparently a primary particle having a copulative and sometimes also a cumulative force, and also even so then to etc., often used in connection or composition with other particles or small words. As I said, the word to is not there in the Greek. Having an and in the sentence does not necessarily make it two separate things. Sarah had a husband, an Ish, whose name was Abraham. She also called him her master, her husband and her master. He was still one and the same. Even we will no longer call him Baal, but husband. Do we then not also call him Yahweh and King, Master and High Priest? And even Thomas calls him Master and Elohim. Thomas is speaking of the same person that is standing right there before him. So it's really up to the translator's discretion what way and how they want to use some of these words. As we see, it can be translated as even, to place in an equal state, as an obligation or in a state which nothing is due on either side, to balance accounts. Still an evenness. Even, verb transitive, to be equal, though in the 1828 dictionary it said it wasn't used anymore. Even, nothing, noting a level or equality, or emphatically, a like manner or degree. If it were translated as also, likewise, in a like manner, or if it said sitting on the throne, indeed the Lamb. In reality, in truth, in fact, indeed is usually emphatical, but in some cases more so than others. And this is true. It is indeed that the one who is sitting on the throne is the Lamb, is even the Lamb, is indeed the Lamb. We know that the Lamb that was slain was Yeshua, who was the Word, and the Word was the seed, and the seed was the Son of Yahweh. He came from the house of Yahweh. He was the Word. One and the same we see sitting here on the throne. Hebrews 2:9. But we do see him who was made for a little while lower than the messengers, Yeshua, because of the suffering of death, crowned with esteem and respect. By the favor of Elohim, he should taste death for everyone. Now let's look at Matthew 25:31-34. And when the son of Adam, I want to stop there and say something about this Adam. I looked it up in the Greek concordance to the Septuagint, and more times than anything, it goes back to Ish. It goes back to husband. And when the son of the husband of Ish comes in his esteem, and all the set-apart messengers with him, then he shall sit on the throne of his esteem. The seed from the house is going to sit on the throne, the Lamb that was slain. And all the nations shall be gathered before him, and he shall separate them one from another, as a shepherd, Yahweh is our shepherd, we shall not want, separates his sheep from the goats. And he shall set the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on his left. Then the sovereign shall say to those on his right, the sovereign, the shepherd, the one who sits on the throne, the King of righteousness, the husband, the Word. He shall say to those on his right hand, Come, you blessed of my Father, inherit the reign prepared for you from the foundation of the world. I am in my Father, and my Father is in me. I and my Father are one. What we have going on here is oneness. And we see at the end of Zechariah 6:13, and the counsel of peace shall be between them both. When we look at this word for both, it is two, in the sense of the changing seasons. It comes from a family root that says a repeating of the first or what was before. I guess we would expect nothing less than a counsel of shalom, since he is the righteous king of shalom. We see that he counsels within himself in Ephesians 1 as well. The Word, the Creator, the High Priest, the King. The Father is in the Son, and the Son is in the Father. This head that was crowned is the head, the top of the body. He's both King, King of righteousness, and High Priest. Let's look at another instance where this El Ta appears in relationship to the head of the body. Zechariah 12, verses 7 through 11. And Yahweh shall save the tents of Yehudah first, so that the comeliness of the house of David and the comeliness of the inhabitants of Yerushalayim would not become greater than that of Yehudah. Here we are speaking of a land inheritance, saving of a land, saving of the dwelling places. In that day Yahweh shall shield the inhabitants of Yerushalayim, and the feeble among them in that day shall be like David, and the house of David like Elohim, like the messenger of Yahweh before them. And it shall be in that day that I seek to destroy all the Gentiles that come against Yerushalayim. And I shall pour out on the house of David and on the inhabitants of Yerushalayim a spirit of favor and prayers, and they shall look upon me whom they pierced, and they shall mourn for him as one mourns for his only son, and they shall be in bitterness over him, as a bitterness over a firstborn. In that day the mourning of Yerushalayim is going to be great, like the mourning at Hadad Ramon in the valley of Megiddo. First thing I'd like to take a look at is who is doing the saving of these dwelling places in the land. As we see at the beginning of Zechariah 12:7, we have Shua, Yahweh, El Ta. Yahshua El Ta is the one doing the rescuing of the dwelling places of the land of Yehudah. And as we look in verse 10, we read, And I shall pour on the house of David and on the inhabitants of Yerushalayim a spirit of favor and prayers, and they shall look upon me whom they pierced, and they shall mourn for him as one mourns for his only son, and they shall be in bitterness over him as a bitterness over the firstborn. We see this word me in Zechariah 12:10. It's the El Ta. They look upon the El Ta whom they have pierced, and they mourn for him as one mourns for his only son. This firstborn at the end of the verse is Strong's H1060, firstborn, hence chief. We can see this whole entire section of scripture here, chapter 12, is Yahweh speaking. So the me, the El Ta, whom they pierced, that he is speaking of, is himself. John 19, verses 32 to 37. Therefore the soldiers came and broke the legs of the first, and of the other who was impaled with him. But when they came to Yeshua, Yahweh's redemption, Yahweh who came to redeem us, Yahweh who came to rescue us, Yahweh who comes to save, and he saw that he was already dead, they did not break his legs. But one of the soldiers pierced his side with a spear, and instantly blood and water came out. And he who has seen has witnessed, and his witness is true. And he knows that he is speaking the truth, in order that you might believe. For this took place in order for the scripture to be filled, not one of his bones shall be broken. And again another scripture says, they shall look on him whom they pierced. John 20, verses 24 to 28. But Toma, called the twin, one of the 12, was not with them when Yeshua came. So the other taught ones said to him, we have seen the Master. But he said to them, unless I see his hands, and the mark of the nails, and put my finger into the imprint of the nails, and put my hand into his side, where he was pierced, I shall by no means believe. And after 8 days, his taught ones were again inside, and Toma with them. Yeshua came, the doors having been shut, and he stood in the midst and said, peace to you. Then he said to Toma, bring your fingers here, and see my hands, and bring your hand and put it into my side, and do not be unbelieving, but believing. And Toma answered and said to him, my Master and my Elohim. Toma claims that Yeshua, who was pierced, who was put on the stake, was his Master and his Elohim, that his name was Yeshua, that he knew that he was Yahweh's redemption, Yahweh coming to rescue his people. Isaiah 53:5. The same one that was wounded for our transgressions is the same one who was pierced, is the same one that Toma looks upon, is the same one that will be looked upon again. Let's go back to where we started one more time before we wrap this up. Psalm 119, 160. Beginning thy word, truth. Forever and every one judgments of thy righteousness. As we can see, the head, the top, the leader, the one in authority, who is the Word from the beginning, is the truth. Who said they were the truth? Yeshua said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Zechariah 8:7 and 8:8. Thus said Yahweh of hosts, see, I am saving my people from the land of the sunrise and from the land of the sunset, and I shall bring them back, and they shall dwell in the midst of Yerushalayim, and they shall be my people, and I shall be their Elohim, in truth and in righteousness. He is the truth, and he is the King of righteousness. The head, the one that was from the beginning, is the same one who was, the same one who is, and the same one who is coming. Revelation 19, verses 11 through 16. And I saw the heaven opened, and there was a white horse, and he who sat on him was called Trustworthy and Truth. And in righteousness he judges and he fights. The truth is riding on the horse, and he's judging. And his eyes were as a flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns, having a name that had been written, which no one had perceived except himself. And having been dressed in a robe, dipped in blood, I would say there was probably some blood on the stake and probably some blood at the time he was pierced. And his name is called the Word of Yahweh. And the armies in the heaven, dressed in fine linen, white and clean, followed him on white horses. And out of his mouth goes a sharp sword. The sword would be the word, that with it he should smite the nations, and he shall shepherd them with a rod of iron. And he treads the winepress of the fierceness and the wrath of El Shaddai. And on his robe and on his thigh he has a name written, Sovereign of Sovereigns. The sovereign sits on the throne, the sovereign wears the crown, and Master of Masters. And that's just what we saw Toma call Elohim, was his master. It is apparent, just from the reading of this last verse in the English, that there is only one sovereign of sovereigns and one master of masters. Revelation 21, verses 1 through 7. And I saw a renewed heaven and a renewed earth, for the former heaven and the former earth had passed away, and the sea is no more. And I, Yochanan, saw the set-apart city, the renewed Yerushalayim, coming down out of the heaven from Elohim, prepared as a bride, adorned for her husband, her Ish. And I heard a loud voice from the heaven saying, See, the booth of Elohim is with men, and he shall dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and Elohim himself shall be with them and be their Elohim. As we saw, it will be in truth and in righteousness. And Elohim shall wipe away every tear from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, nor mourning, nor crying, and there shall be no more pain, for the former have passed away. And he who is sitting on the throne said, See, I make all matters new. And he said unto me, Write, for these words are truth and trustworthy. And he said to me, It is done. I am the El, the Aleph, and the Ta, the beginning and the end. The one who thirsts, I shall give him the fountain of water of life without payment. The one who overcomes shall inherit. The Father, the leader, the head, the one in authority, determines who shall inherit all this. And I shall be his Elohim, and he shall be a seed for my house, one who is filled with the seed. Revelation chapter 1, verse 8. I am the Aleph and the Ta, beginning and end, says Yahweh, who is, and who was, and who is to come, the Almighty. Existence. So we saw who he was in the beginning, who he is to come. He was existence from the beginning. He is existence to come. He is existence right now. For the word of Elohim is living and working and sharper than any two-edged sword, cutting through even to the dividing of being and spirit, and of joints and marrow, and able to judge in righteousness the thoughts and intentions of the heart.